rock music is of the devil. Even not-so-conservatives say that. David Bowie says, rock has always been the devil's music. Well, I don't know about that, but it does fit this chapter. Bowie goes on to say, I believe rock and roll is dangerous. I feel we're only heralding something even darker than ourselves. Rock, in my opinion, is like all music. Some of it brings people up. Some of it drags them all down. Every song brings us closer to light or to darkness, either to love or hate. Who inspires each? Satanism began with the Beatles at the Karlaplan Studion, a Stockholm, Sweden studio. A worker there discussed Satanism with John and Paul, including mysticism, channeling energy, and the networks. It had come up before, but less convincingly. As far as John recalled, that was a turning point. No action came of it before then. The man told John and Paul that their show would never be a global sensation until they ceremonially enact the sacrifice and pray to Lucifer for his influence over the whole world. He told them that Lucifer is the god of this world and that his power surpasses all others. With that in mind, that night, October the 24th, 1963, John and Paul said words, most likely without taking them seriously enough, promising that they would each sacrifice to quench Lucifer's appetite, or something along that foolish line. I heard John discuss it with Vernon E. Mosher. Attributing the eminent death to the oath, Paul cries, I said something wrong yesterday. Understand that what followed would have most likely happened anyway. Fate was already for them. Now the magic began a week later, on Halloween 1963, when they returned with a triumphant entry. Crazed fans made a considerable spectacle of themselves at London Airport. Ed Sullivan, as it happened, witnessed the scene firsthand. He thought he was there by fate. His plane had been delayed. He enjoyed what he saw and was sure America would enjoy experiencing it too. On November the 11th, at the Delmonico Hotel in New York, Brian Epstein met with Ed Sullivan to negotiate the now famous U.S. television appearances that occurred there 3 months later, in February 1964. All went as orchestrated. Having that coincidental timing made a big impression on all 4 band members, but did not call enough attention to itself to turn them fully that direction yet. Besides, they had no one to guide them back then. They knew nothing about Satanism, not really. It was just curiosity or a game. They didn't enter into any binding compact back then because no one was there to show them how. In April 1965, while working on Help in the Twickenham film studio, Paul, John and George turned to an expert as they supposed. All that year, beginning on January 29th, Paul had complained of his lethal dreams. He was dying all the time. It was most disturbing to him. The first self-proclaimed expert was Almond Sperry. When Paul, John and George spoke of Paul's dreams, Almond gave them some lessons in dream interpretation and promised to teach them to control their dreams. He taught them some old cultic meditations he had learned from either Kenneth Anger or Vernon Mosher. Then he said it would give them new power. A week or 2 later they met Mosher. He prepared them for Anger's meeting, stirring up interest in Satanism and his doctrine of hate. The thing that most impressed the band about Mosher was his blatant egotistical confidence in interpreting Paul's dreams, claiming that Paul is the one. Mosher predicted Paul's death, calling it a sacrifice, and even told him approximately when it would occur. Mosher asked John and Paul when and where they had made such a compact with Satan. Never, Paul said. How else can you explain all of this? Mosher asked. Have you prayed to Satan? Oh yes, John said. But it didn't mean anything. It was in 15 months before the dreams began. Paul then learned the pattern. It's the same pattern that afflicted many other bands. It's always what happens. It's part of the deal. It's why Brian Jones and many others died. Paul and Brian united with Satan in mortality before crossing over to be tormented in immortality. It's the same with Led Zeppelin, The Who, and every other band that was launched by Satanic Pact. For all such groups, a death of a band member is always certain. It's the bill that must be paid to the coven. In the Beatles' case, the satanic debt could only be paid by Paul. However, if the automobile crash that ended his life were an accident, not a deliberate offering, then his demise was not a valid sacrificial death according to the satanic code. That is the reason that Mark David Chapman, who said he loved John, shot him dead. Chapman, a self-proclaimed Satanist, fancied himself a priest working with orders to sacrifice John, making John both an enemy and also an immortal idol. Beatles records had messages that were too subtle for most, but Chapman was given power to hear them. Under a negative influence, an evil spirit helped Chapman discern a demand from John in his recorded singing. In Come Together, again and again, John sings, "Shoot me." It's hard to recognize because it's followed by an immediate hand clap. You only hear it if you know. Even though we went on to great success without Paul, our glory was especially shallow to John, who all the more missed Paul for it. Very lonely without Paul, John's depression became intense. He sadly sang in his "Yeah Blues," "I'm lonely, wanna die." Working with me instead of Paul gave him a sense of desperation. He sang, "Feel so suicidal, even hate my rock and roll, wanna die, yeah, wanna die." Now, with the evil promptings, these words combine with other Beatles lyrics to form a punitive, fanatical internalization. The Beatles had sung "I Don't Care Too Much for Money," but then appeared on Pepper's looking like $1,000,000. Demons told Chapman, or Chapman told himself, that a retaliation was in order, that John Lennon should be punished for forsaking Beatles' values, and that John insisted on being shot. Chapman claims Satan, via a handler, ordered John's death. It's rumored that the same motivation drove the attempted stabbing murder of George. They say Satan ordered it. Neither Ringo nor I have such threats against us, because neither one of us was present for that initial exchange between Satan and the Beatles. It was a few years before I joined. We did not require being X'd out. Paul paid that bill. Slaying John and attempting to kill George were overkills for Satan. This weird story sounds absurd coming from me who had no part in it. MDC speaks for himself. Alone in my apartment back in Honolulu, Mark David Chapman said in an interview, I would strip naked and put on Beatles records and pray to Satan to give me the strength. To open himself to Satan's spirits, according to the Gannett News Service interview, Chapman played our songs over and over again to give him Satan's power. He said, I prayed for demons to enter my body to give me the willpower to kill. It worked. His prayers were answered. They always are. Another lunatic murderer who used Beatles music for satanic purposes was our one-time friend, the notorious Charles Manson. Besides to us, Charlie was a close friend to the Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones, Kenneth Anger, Satanist Guide, and Process Church. We all knew each other well. Charlie's works of satanic murder were based on White Album songs, especially from what he read into lyrics of John's Revolution 9, George's Piggies, and My Helter Skelter. Charlie had most especially read Strange Things into Revolution 9. In that song, Yoko taught Charlie to become naked as a kind of ritual, connecting him to the devils who were in sync with that music. Put together from a collection of loop tapes, John and Yoko made Revolution 9. I was never really fond of it, partly because they stole my idea. They knew I'd been making sound collages stored on tapes ever since I joined the band in 1966. I'd used a small number of them in my videos of avant-garde images. I fully intended to include such a collage, but better, on a future album after I'd refined the art. Then, when I was in America with the Bonzos, John did it behind my back. Their poor amateur attempt, much to my dismay, ended up on our album. It was not at all of the quality that I had made. Since they made theirs public first, everyone thought John was the genius or idiot behind the idea. Some of their tape bips had them screaming. At a point where John screams, right, Charlie unfortunately heard the command to rise. John and Yoko clipped number 9 from a tape that said EMI Test Series number 9 after finding that part of it sounds like Turn Me On Dead Man when played reversed. With 9 as McCartney's number and a recurring number that appeared to entangle John his whole life, hearing it backward as Turn Me On Dead Man was enough for John to add it all over their song and to add 9 to the title. The song and the title affected Charles Manson, who listened for apocalyptic clues. Revolution 9 led him to chapter 9 of Revelation, the Holy Bible's last book. Charlie taught that Revolution 9 was code for Revelation 9. Revelation 9, chapter 14, verse 15, has 4 angels. Charlie supposed it was the Fab Four. He believed that Satan himself revealed to him that our own part in world history was contained in the apocalypse. Now, with this song, he accepted his Lord's order to rise to begin the revolution of Revelation 9. Rise was written at a murder location with the blood of a victim. Charlie would tell the oppressed, especially blacks, to rise. Ordering the blacks to rise was consistent too with what Charlie got from George's Piggies. With Charlie's version of Revolution 9 being a call for blacks to rise against the oppressing middle-class whites, he saw Piggies as a melodic warning to the whites that the black uprising was imminent. Evidence linking murders of the Manson family came from the words pig, pigs, or piggy, drawn with the victim's blood. Charlie's favourite saying came from that song, "What they need's a damn good whacking." George's mother gave him that wacky line. Now to my song, Helter Skelter. I read a review of a freak-out song by my friends The Who. I Can See for Miles was reported to have swearing cymbals and cursing guitars, a fantastically dirty emergence. Having not yet heard that Who song, I imagined a wildly thunderous, raucous, jolting song that would drive people to riot like in early Beatles legends. I wanted to write one like that. I thought of that crazed mental state and related it to the fast thrust of a giant spiral slide I'd slid down called Helter Skelter. Laced with hot sexual innuendo tension and an incredible pulsation, the song would incite people out of their minds. I intended the universe to create and extend it to me as songs have revealed themselves to me before. I aspired to channel for this world its nastiest, dirtiest, rawest, noisiest song ever. Helter Skelter ended up written in blood. Racial conflict was Charlie's interpretation of that song too. He thought an inevitable racial war was understood to be coming down fast. He thought I warned all to look out. Charlie supposed that I made him do his part, that I ordered it, but no, I did not. He was all ready to rise already. Satanism drove Charlie to have those murders committed, but he did not say they were satanic. Actually, taking it in another direction, Charlie taught that he was the returning reincarnated Christ. Now, don't get me wrong about the Satanism connection. Charlie built his religion based on doctrine given to him from Kenneth Anger, who was a disciple of Aleister Crowley. He used it in a fuller sense than the Beatles used it for specks of Paulism. Satanism had dark influences, but was not the end. It's like Catholicism begetting Protestantism. Charlie Manson ideologies sprang from the Crowley nest almost as directly as did the Beatles' Paulism. Manson's approach is no more like Paulism than one good Protestant religion is like another. We all have similarities, but each of us has significant departures too. Don't judge a beast by its sister or parent. Most religions have a mother church. Don't be overly critical because of a mother of an idea. You may have the same mother or father and not know it. How many Protestants are critical of Catholics? They condemn their mother church. One Protestant insisted to me that the Catholic Church was the beastly whore spoken of in Revelation 17, who sits on the 7 hills of Rome. He called that church the mother of harlots. That makes your church a harlot, I said, since it's the daughter of the mother of harlots. You get it? Don't criticize. Just help make the world better. My father taught me that spiritual pride is the most pernicious poison. In Charlie's racially obsessed world, Rocky Raccoon meant black people. Likewise, as he listened to Blackbird, he absurdly assumed I urged a massive black revolt. Actually, I wrote about Paul dying and about me flying with his broken wings. However, I also had concerns about news reports of racial tensions in America. Sure, I also sang for their healing and thriving. The song came to me like a gift early one morning. I mostly wrote it to myself. To Charlie, happiness is a warm gun was a need for weapons for the revolution. It surprises me that he missed those strong sexual suggestions with his mind so sexually occupied. It was about Mother Superior, Yoko, jumping John's gun. Every song, practically, appeared to have a special message intended for Charlie. Some were to begin the racial revolution. He also read strange interpretations into our other songs. In his world, everything had to do with the Beatles and the Bible. He misunderstood most of it. But one point that Charlie got right was that John did generally favour the NWO's global revolution. When he wrote our revolution songs, Revolution 1, Revolution, and Revolution number 9, recorded in that order, he did mean to encourage one, but not as Charlie wanted it. The destruction John sang of attracted him. He ended up with a double message. On the single Revolution, he played it safe politically. But in the later release Revolution 1, he softly said in his true feelings right after singing out, as most know it. But when you talk about destruction, don't you know that you can count me out in? John chose to kind of play it safe by leaving the in out of the printed lyrics. He hoped that his softer word entered people's subconscious without causing a backlash. Although he favoured destruction, he struggled with his message. He felt that the right word would be censored. John never intended to have the song banned with the right word, but did not entirely remove it either. Much of our writing wrote itself. We were the music vessels who recorded songs that were given to us. It often just came into our heads as though some force or spirit from beyond had written it and put the new song into our brains. It's like channeling. That's when we are our most creative. Nevertheless, this is also where things get strange now and then. We don't always know what it means. It seems that some lyricists from beyond foresaw exactly how these songs would affect Charlie and looked ahead to see what would befall him from acting on them all. It was a terrible setup. Sexy Sadie was written out of John's disillusionment for the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. I wrote more on that song elsewhere. But the same force that gave us all those lyrics told Charlie how to interpret them all and how to act on them. It also foretold his fate for being sucked in. He too was a pawn. None of us realized it would lead to people being murdered. Clearly, we could never have had any actual empathy for the murderer, especially not before he decided to do the crimes. However, it seems it's not our fault. To us, Sexy Sadie was only about the Maharishi. Sexy Sadie replaced Maharishi, not to predict the future, but to avoid a lawsuit. To Manson, however, Sexy Sadie was Sadie Mae Glutz. Everyone knew Charlie gave that name to his lover, Susan Atkins, long before our album came out. When in jail for the Manson murders, Sexy Sadie, aka Sadie Mae Glutz or Susan Atkins, was the one to implicate Charlie. Her testimony in court is what brought down the Manson family. Details of Sharon Tate's murder were particularly disturbing. Intended satanic mutilations went as Charlie ordered. They had made the same kind of death for success deal made by the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, and by heaven knows how many other bands launched by secret pact. This time, it was for a movie deal. I am the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business, Charles Tex Watson said before he murdered Wojtek Frykowski, according to Sexy Sadie's testimony. Tex came back, and he looked at her, Tate, and he said, "Kill her." And I killed her, and I just stabbed her, and she fell, and I stabbed her again. I don't know how many times I stabbed her. Sharon Tate begged for her unborn baby's life, but the child was part of the deal. Sadie had every intention to cut the baby out of the womb to correspond with the movie Rosemary's Baby, but there wasn't time. In his trial, Charlie's disciples were all notably under his hypnotic power. He captured them using mind control through a very powerful spirit that still has a hold on some of the Manson family to this day. Entering a man and taking over his thinking gives a malicious spirit far too much power. Charlie is an often overlooked victim in this story. He was possessed before his followers were. Sexy Sadie, what have you done? Your own testimony made a fool of everyone. Charlie would not have been exposed without it. She made a fool of everyone in the Manson family. Sexy Sadie, ooh, what have you done? Sexy Sadie, talking broke the rules. Your testimony laid it down for the world to see. You laid it down for all to see. Sexy Sadie, ooh, you broke the rules. One sunny day, the world was waiting for a lover. She came along to turn on everyone. Sexy Sadie, she's the greatest lover and greatest killer of them all. Sexy Sadie, how did you know the whole world was out there waiting just for you to say what happened? The world was waiting just for your confession to put a stop to the man and his clan. Sexy Sadie, ooh, how did you know? Sexy Sadie, you'll get yours yet. However big you think you are by talking about him, however great it makes you, Sexy Sadie, ooh, you'll get yours yet. Charlie gave her everything she had just to sit at his table. Sadie's smile to us would lighten everything. Sexy Sadie is the latest and the greatest of them all. Sexy Sadie made a rule fool of everyone in that group. These words are neither my thoughts nor John's sentiments. It's merely what the lyrics were about are by talking about him. However great it makes you, Sexy Sadie, ooh, you'll get yours yet. Charlie gave her everything she had just to sit at his table. Sadie's smile to us would lighten everything. Sexy Sadie is the latest and the greatest of them all. Sexy Sadie made a rule fool of everyone in that group. These words are neither my thoughts nor John's sentiments. It's merely what the lyrics were about by the Manson interpretation according to that same evil spirit that wrote the song through John. John knew nothing about it. He was angry with this last spiritual infatuation at that time. I include it as a demonstration of how the evil spirits can make fools of everyone, not just of the Manson family. The song was inspired by the spirit who set it all up. Now, it has been said by some that Maggie May, which we released a year and a half later, was of Sexy Sadie Mae Glutz also. However, that song goes back to long, long before I joined the band. We used it all along as a warm-up number. It's just a coincidence that it came out when it did. Magical Mystery Tour has another case of historical clues given before the event. As a death clue in the booklet, John is standing by a sign that says the best way to go is by M, D, and C. It clued in those who knew that M, D, and C was a funeral parlor. Decades later, one of our fans wrote, saying that it referred to the initials of the murderer who took John's life. That coincidence added a sad spin on that picture. When we made the movie in print, I enjoyed that pointed at Paul, but had only seen him occasionally. His death was not a personal loss to me. Although it marked the greatest upheaval that karma ever put me through, it did not mark a death in any tragic way to me on a personal level, except just in the sense that I lost my old simple life by taking on Paul's part. However, to me, bringing John's own death into the picture is very saddening. John was one of my best friends and partners. I'd never had such a brilliantly talented bandmate. Without a doubt, I believe fate or God or the universe made no random strike on Paul, but fully intended that John and I do our work together in this world. Charlie's supporters are of two classes. His most visibly connected adherents are those followers who hung around him, compromising the so-called Manson family. These are the ones of whom the media acknowledged to be under his power. They are those who carried out his sexual fantasies, murders, and rituals. Sexy Sadie Mae Glutz, for one of many examples, did it all for him. Less conspicuously, There are many others in the network who supported Charlie then, and whose influence continues to support him to further the network's agenda. He is connected to social engineers with global power through affiliations with creators of the New World Order. The work is coordinated by the same key players at the top, but through many lesser factions throughout the world. One such faction is the Weathermen. With the support of that global network, this group made a national impact in the States. They got their name from a paper they distributed at the SDS detailing their faction's position. That paper was named after a line from Dylan's Subterranean Homesick Blues. It was called "You Don't Need a Weatherman to Know Which Way the Wind Blows." Later, their name became the Weather Underground Organization, WUO, but are still the Weatherman or Weathermen. Under the leadership of Bill Ayers and Jeff Jones, this group bombed the Pentagon and other buildings, especially of the US federal government, but other targets as well. They wanted to destroy the United States. On one occasion, the bombing was merely to break Timothy Leary out of prison. The Weathermen, like Charles Manson, intended to destroy the United States through violence and had similar enough thinking that they supported each other. As Bill Ayers' wife, Bernadine Dawn, had explained it, after referring to the Manson murders, the Weathermen dig Charles Manson. Weatherman bombings targeted buildings more than people, but also killed. In an interview printed on the 10th of September 2001, the day before the 9/11 attacks in New York and elsewhere, Ayers said, "I don't regret setting bombs, and I feel we didn't do enough." Now, though, Ayers and Jones, rather than killing, have better methods that changed America. Ayers was Barack Obama's mentor. The $1 trillion stimulus package was written with help from Jeff Jones. The Weathermen have top-level connections.